Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasure Town here, and today in my hands I have a $1,000 bill. Now when I got this, I thought I need to make a video about these bills, thinking about the history and everything that went into the creation of this. This is the last type of $1,000 bill that was made. It was made in 1934 and circulated for a little bit. Obviously, this has some wear from actually being used, but the presentation that I've made is going to focus on the complete history of the $1,000 bill, whether that's the values of them, the designs, who's on them, who they feature, and what the specialties about each specific note is. There's a ton of different $1,000 bills. We don't think of them really anymore. We're not using them. I believe that this was largely in part to the fact that we have the electronic transfers, so big bills like this were not needed. Here's the back of it, but just a really cool bill. It came in our coin shop, the Happy Coin, so that prompted me to make the video. Let's go to the presentation. So before I get into the bulk of the presentation, I'm going to be really focusing on the ones that are theoretically attainable for a collector. I do want to just highlight some of the history of the $1,000 bill. There were a lot of ones that were either proofs, so they just thought that they might make them as a concept, or one or two of them were issued, or just none exist today. Like this one, it was interest of 20 cents per day, so you'd receive 20 cents every day when you cash it in for how old the bill was. A lot of these would be worth a ton if they appeared today, but they're just not held in private hands or don't exist at all anymore, but we do know about them. The first note that really is something that some people own is the 1882 $1,000 Hamilton gold certificate. So now he appears on the $10 bill, but there's a lot of specific varieties of these. There's about a few dozen known to exist. And the thing is, and this pattern will continue, but a lot of them are currently in banks and institutions. So these are not going to be taken by private collectors. And for this one, around VF20, so reasonably worn notes, they start out at about 100,000, but those prices were paid in like 2005 and 2007. So they're probably double that or just more if they were to appear at auction today. And there was one that was sold for 880,000 in VF35, but that was one of the ones where there were two that exist and are held by banks or like the Federal Reserve or something like that, and there was a third one, and it's a mystery where that is. Nobody knows where it is. There's rewards even if somebody would just say that they have it. So this one came to the market and then sold for 880,000. That's the sort of thing that we're dealing with here, where it's so rare, but occasionally these will be available. So if you have a lot of money, you could buy it. After that, we have the extremely rare 1890 and 1891 $1,000 notes. This is, again, more just something that's interesting that I wanted to show you, as they're in the multi-million dollar ranges. This is not anything that's really attainable. But the 1891 is the grand watermelon. The back looks like it has 3 zeros in the coloration and kind of shape of a watermelon, but it features George Meade, who was a U.S. Army officer in the Civil War who defeated Robert E. Lee at Gettysburg. And this one sold for the most expensive price ever paid at $3,290,000. On the right, we have one of the other most expensive notes. This sold for $2,600,000, and that features William Marcy, who was a former Secretary of State and Governor of New York, as well as a U.S. Senator. And that one is one of two that exists. One is in a museum, the other is in a private collection, and that's the one that's being traded. There's supposed to be 9 specimens outstanding that have not been accounted for, so it would be reasonable that 1 or 2, according to professional estimates, could be found or be discovered and come to market, which would probably be the most significant currency find in a really long time. Pretty much from this point on, though, they're getting more and more attainable. This is the 1907 and 1922 $1,000 Hamilton gold certificate. So Alexander Hamilton continues to appear on these after his earlier 1882 appearance. There were 6 varieties on the 1907s, while all of the ones from 1922 were the same. So in the 1907s, there are some varieties, and those are signature varieties that are naturally pretty rare. The Parker and Burke, or Teehee and Burke, are the regular ones, and those will be in the 10,000 to 30,000 range before getting into uncirculated grades, while there are others that are super scarce. For example, a Napier McClung 1907 was the most expensive one I could find. It sold for $287,500 in very fine 25, the only known example of those signature combos, while a regular choice uncirculated 64 note sold for $195,500 with the Teehee Burke. So all I'm saying is that this is an example where the signatures are hugely impactful on the values. Now, moving on to some of the values of the 1922 as opposed to the 1907, I found a fine 15 that sold for $13,000, and so that's similar in the bottom range, while the best known that I could come up with auction results for were about uncirculated notes, which were in the 96,000 and 115,000 marks. So there weren't any choice uncirculated ones selling. I'd assume that if you had one, that would bring more than 100,000 like the AU did. Also interesting on this note is that it's one of the only notes to feature the actual dollar symbol. So right there it says $1000 for $1,000, which is just kind of neat. Most of our things just say the denomination instead of having the symbol attached to the note. In 1918, in between those past two notes, we had a really, really beautiful, neat note, and this one probably is the start of the attainable ones. It's also considered the highest denomination that somebody can get if they're collecting the 1918 series, as the 5,000 and 10,000 are just in museums. But this is also one of the only notes to show a dollar sign, so I guess that theme kind of continued, and I think personally that the eagle again is just so awesome to have on it, and I wish that our currency looked like that today. But the serial numbers don't really matter. They're all going to be pretty low, and they're valued based off of their condition and issuing district. So this one was from Cleveland. That's an additional factor that can add rarity, like the signatures that I was just talking about. The generic examples that are in heavily circulated condition sell for about $8,000, but XF and higher can move up a lot. So as an example, VF25 only moves to about 15,000. AU gets all the way to 51,000, and then an uncirculated note was right around 100,000. So these will again get out of your price point if it's at the higher grades, but for a dedicated collector who's saving up a lot of money, it's pretty doable to get some of the less expensive ones. Also of note is that this is just a Federal Reserve note. It's not a gold certificate, which for whatever reason seems to bring more value, even though there's no redeemability for gold. Then we get to Grover Cleveland on the 1928 gold certificate, and he was the 22nd and 24th president of the United States, the only one to be different numbered as he was voted out of office and came back in. But this one, I thought it was a misprint at first, but that's what a lot of people think. There's literally nothing to the right of his portrait, which is just kind of interesting. It features a very simple reverse design, but this one is worth about $5,000 if it's really circulated. Decent looking examples trade up to about $12,000, and then a crisp uncirculated one sold for $75,000 in 2006. So these, again, there's huge ranges based on how good looking of a note it is, but this is the first to feature Cleveland. He then kind of finishes out the series before it would be discontinued. So I'll show you the first of those, 1928, another Federal Reserve note. They say redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury, or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve bank. That's super cool, except it's not considered a gold certificate for whatever reason, even though it was redeemable in gold. For the regular dark green seal, which is right here, I'll show you the light green right there, but for the dark green seal, this is about an $1,800 note in circulated but ungraded condition, $2,535 and $4,064. So here's one of the first where you can get a really crisp one without paying astronomical increases. In super high conditions, that can go up. But for a light green seal, I found one that was $47,000 in 66. For a star note, I found one like this. Here's the star. This means that it replaced the notes, and those are very rare. I found one that was $34,500 in 65, and they're generally above $10,000 regardless of condition, as long as they're a replacement star note. Our last note that we're going to be covering today is the 1934. There was a 1934 and a 1934A, so you can just tell the difference here. I don't think that there's too much of a difference in terms of the value on it. They're 1500 in super circulated condition, 2500 in 35, meaning that there's some wear, but it's an overall pretty presentable note. And then between 4 and 15,000 in uncirculated condition. The lime green seals, like we see featured here, are scarcer and generally found on notes with lower serial numbers, so they're generally slightly better, but it's not a huge premium. It's just something that's probably going to make the note a little bit better if you have it. Star notes start around $2,000 and can be a lot more expensive, heading up to $35,000 at the best conditions, which far outreaches the regular non-star note versions. So that pretty much concludes it. Just flipping back, there's so many cool designs that are featured here. I think it's neat to see the diversity of currency and minor figures that occur on some of the very earliest. But thanks so much for watching, and hope that you get the cool collection pieces that you're looking to get in terms of the currency. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and subscribe to help me out with my channel. And if you want to connect more, I do so on my Facebook, Treasure Town, my website, treasuretownYT.com, or my Instagram, TreasureTownYT. Have a great day, and I hope to see you on some of my other videos.